On Tuesday, Democratic gubernatorial candidate Nikki Fried responded to the FBI raid of former President Trump's home at Mar-A-Lago. After acknowledging the unprecedented nature of a former president's home getting raided, she tore into Republican Governor Ron DeSantis' response, as well as his recent suspension of State Attorney Andrew Warren. Fried is in a primary battle with former Governor Charlie Crist, a Republican turned Democrat. She has sought to paint DeSantis as an extremist, while Fried, the current Florida Agriculture Commissioner, currently polls behind Charlie Crist. Some surveys have shown an uptick in support for her.
Executed at Mar-A-Lago, my heart sank. Regardless if you love or hate Donald Trump, it pains me to see what is happening in our country. If we all take a step back and reflect, we are all saddened to see where we are in history. No one wants to see a past president's house searched. The first time in American history. We are more divided today than we have been since the Civil War. This is a very charged time in America. We are all waiting for lots of answers from yesterday, and we all deserve them. But we need steady leadership who upholds the American values, including the rule of law and civil discourse. But it also pains me that Ron DeSantis will still not condemn Nazis, even after multiple requests to stand united with me. He won't condemn January 6th, but he has no problem attacking the FBI. An FBI that is run by a director that was appointed by Donald Trump. Attacking our institutions and making threats about revenge if they gain power is un-American. We should always seek truth and justice. That is the American way. Nobody is above the law. Not Donald Trump, not Ron DeSantis, not me. 5 days ago, my heart also sank when I heard the news of Andrew Warren's suspension. A politically motivated overreach of executive power by our governor. Now, he's accusing the FBI of the same thing. The hypocrisy is astounding. When I announced to run for governor, I said I wanted to break a corrupt system and replace it with something new. That something new is the will of the people. I believe that a majority of Americans and Floridians do not want to see the heightened rhetoric from both sides. We are tired of the culture wars and the echo chambers, and we're running out of time to reach across the political divide and recognize that we are all Americans. Our motto, E pluribus unum, out of many, one. One country, one people, united, not divided. We pledge allegiance to one nation under God. Even in my own primary, I'm being attacked for reaching across the aisle and working with a Republican to pass medical marijuana reform, something that 90% of us all agree should be legal. This does not make us friends. I don't approve of who he is, what he says, and I certainly don't approve with what he does. But implementing the will of the people is more important than the partisan politics. Isn't that what you want in a governor? Someone who puts partisan politics aside and works for the good of all Floridians. There are deep wounds in our country right now that need to be healed. We need to stop seeing each other as an enemy and finding common ground. My mom is a Democrat. My dad is a die-hard Republican. They live different lives, but they are not enemies. And I am where I am today because of the influence of both of them. We have to stop seeing the other political parties as enemies and find that common ground. We have to stop waging culture wars and fixing our broken system. We need to focus on the issues that matter the most to voters. A strong economy, a clean environment, a robust education system that works for everyone, not the few and 1%, protecting our freedoms and our rights. As governor, I promise you that I will work across the aisle to implement the will of the people on these issues. As governor, I promise you that I will not weaponize the executive branch against my political opponents. As governor, I promise you that I will end these culture wars and work tirelessly for you, the people, who have long been ignored by a corrupt system. And I am asking you, Ron DeSantis, to make these same promises and to not escalate this situation and cause greater divide in our state and in our nation. It is a call to action, an action to unite, not to declare a war. It is time that we try and call for something new. Thank you.
You talked about hypocrisy, but you're under an ethics investigation.
I'm going to answer questions from reporters.
Accepting a $700,000 house.
Any reporters?
Commissioner, I have a question about monkeypox. It looks like that the state has jumped.
Can we talk about monkeypox another time? I'll be happy to talk about monkeypox.
Can we talk off on sidebar?
We absolutely can. This is important on this issue.
Well, I guess generally on this topic with DeSantis saying what he has said, are you expecting more to come from Florida Republicans, more outrage about this, the seizure of documents from Mar-A-Lago?
I hope not. I hope not. We are at a very tipping point in our country right now. This is a time that we have to recognize that we have to uphold law and order, but we also need to not escalate the situation. We are on a very slippery slope in our country, and we need to be de-escalating, wait for evidence, wait for answers from yesterday, and let the Justice Department do what the Justice Department needs to do.
When you talk about coming together and de-escalating, you're using this incident with Trump, the FBI search of Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort, to also criticize your opponent in the Democratic primary, Charlie Crist. I mean, is that de-escalating?
I'm asking him to stop the attacks on something that is unfounded and not on issues. And what I'm here to do today is say, look, we are, as a country and as a state, we're so divided. And we need to de-escalate the situation across the board and across the lines.
But the starting point of the conversation seems to be that, from a Republican point of view, the Biden administration and the Democrats represent a Marxist threat to the American way of life.
And that's the exact rhetoric that I'm asking for us to de-escalate. That we all have to abide by law. We all have, there's obviously, the search that was last night, we all have to wait to see what exactly that search warrant said, the evidence that is being presented, and not to do this rhetoric attack on both sides of the conversation. We as Americans need to find unity, and I hope that the values that we all hold true of Americans, that we all need to seek truth and justice, and that nobody is above the law, and to stop the rhetoric on both sides of the aisle.
But as you acknowledge, this is unprecedented. And I mean, I don't know if you've had any contact with any other Democrats or anybody in the Biden administration about this. I mean, the White House kind of suggests they didn't know about it. But I mean, to be blunt, do you think this is what Democrats need right now? I mean, in terms of, because what you've done is now they've really revved up the Republicans for the upcoming election.
That's why I said the rhetoric on both sides of the aisle. That this is a situation that no one wanted to see. I mean, look, let's take a step back. That a home of a past president just had a search warrant executed on it. I don't care if you love Donald Trump or you hate Donald Trump. As Americans, nobody wants to see that. No one wants to see these fragile institutions that we are experiencing in history today to be attacked, whether it is the Justice Department, whether it is the FBI. This is something that we as Americans need to step back. I certainly have not talked to the White House. I don't have any intel of what they knew, what they didn't know. Obviously, we didn't know about the search warrant before it was executed. But this is a time that we need to just take a step back, take a deep breath, and not escalate the situation.
Well, but here we have the Justice Department and the FBI acting. And we have, so this is the Justice Department in action. And we have an Attorney General candidate running, Daniel Uhlfelder, who says he's running to prevent Ron DeSantis and Ashley Moody from creating an autocratic state in Florida. So the Justice Department and, at least Daniel Uhlfelder among the Democrats, kind of like think there's a threat to our way of life, and it's not Marxist or leftist Democrats. It's Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump on January 6th, and you're saying step back and calm down.
I'm saying as far as last night and what happened yesterday, that we can't escalate the situation. Obviously, I've had very strong words about some of the actions that have come from this administration over the last 3.5 years. I stand behind my questions of some of the issues that he has been dividing us on, the direction of our state, taking away people's rights, taking away people's freedoms, that we are at a tipping point in our democracy right now. And so this is something that we have to do a gut check as Americans and Floridians. Who are we? What do we want as a state in our country? Do we want a governor who is going to continue using the bully pulpit to divide us and to create culture wars? Or do you want a governor who is going to talk about the issues that are actually impacting the people of our state? We have a housing crisis, we have an affordability crisis, we have an insurance crisis, we have an environmental disasters that are happening throughout the state. There are serious issues and serious concerns, and we deserve leaders on both sides of the conversation to recognize that people are hurting and they don't want to see this rhetoric. No one wants to see this. People want to know that government is working, and sometimes that means working across the aisles. I remember a time when Democrats and Republicans used to go out together. I remember, a book that I still have on my bookshelf of the 9 female senators that wrote together when there used to be only 9 female senators. They were Democrats and Republicans, they came together. That is why we have a democracy. We should have 2 strong parties that work together to have compromise to fix the issues that are impacting the state and to fix the issues that are impacting the country. And the political divide is more intense today than it has been since, quite honestly, the Civil War. And so we have to, as leaders, one, take ownership of our own words, but also be responsible for the people that follow our words. And that, my criticism of the governor's tweet last night is a criticism that he just escalated the situation and taking a step back and recognize that a lot of people follow his words, and he has to be careful.
Well, I'm confused.
Do one more question.
I'm confused because didn't you call the governor? Didn't you compare him directly to Adolf Hitler?
I did not. That is not what I.
That's a lie.
That is.
Well, you brought up Adolf Hitler in an interview, and you talked about it a couple of times. So how is that not charged language and rhetoric is polarizing?
What I have said, Gary, is that there is a lot of actions that we are seeing in the state of Florida that is infringing upon people's rights, that are taking away people's rights. We are burning books in the state of Florida by banning them. And there is a lot of things. We have Nazis that are literally marching in the streets of Florida. And as somebody of the Jewish community, this is a very sensitive time for us in our state. And if this doesn't get called out, then unfortunately, he is just emboldening and empowering them. And so when my comments were, I was talking about 1933, that some of the actions that we saw in 1933 are some of the things that should drive concern for some of the things that are happening in our state.